to Glowburn, a podcast dedicated to the Mutant Crawl Classics role-playing game.
Welcome to Glowburn, a podcast about the Mutant Crawl Classics role-playing game and old-school post-apocalyptic adventuring. I'm Judge Bill.
And I'm Judge Forrest.
And we're going to start off with a problem because we have a podcast, but we don't have a game.
This podcast is over.
Well, we need to come up with something. I mean, we've scheduled some time here. We've got some mics and we're good to go. What else can we talk about, Forrest?
Well, this is a post-apocalyptic game, so since we're having an apocalypse of rules here, maybe we can talk about the genre itself.
Absolutely. This podcast is going to be broken down into really two phases. Right now, at the time of this recording, Mutant Crawl Classics role-playing game, the Kickstarter has been funded, and they are currently producing this fine game for us, but we don't have the core rulebook. So during our early phase here, phase one, we're going to be talking about a whole lot of stuff. And when the game comes out, phase two, we can dig into this fabulous game and we can talk about the classes and the AIs and alignments and everything like that. Is there anything else we can talk about?
Oh, there's several other things. As you know, DCCs has a pretty large fan base, and there have been a few things created under the DCC rubric. I think of Reed Sanfilippo's Crawling Under a Broken Moon.
Yep.
And Crawl Jammer. And then, of course, there are the antecedents to Mutant Crawl Classics, Metamorphosis Alpha, and my favorite, Gamma World.
All versions of Gamma World, right? Yep.
All versions.
All right. I think we can, and we've had hintings on the on our creative advisors from Google Communities that they would love to see us cover just about anything and everything science fantasy with this, and I'm okay with that. I think that is it's really kind of hard to draw the lines. Yeah.
Well, and the nice part about it is there's just so much information out there, so much to draw from that we can pull in to the post-apocalyptic setting.
Yep. So right now what we have to go on is there is a 29-page preview of the complete game, originally published in the Gen Con 2015 program guide, and that was linked on by the Kickstarter and is readily available. And also a complete 13-page Level 0 adventure, The Museum at the End of Time, which I thought was fabulous. I just enjoyed reading that. I haven't played it yet, but I've enjoyed reading it.
That was my introduction to MCC as a player. Actually, it was Museum at the End of Time, but we'll talk a little bit about more about that later.
So one thing that our listeners might be wondering is who we are. So why don't you go first, Forrest? Tell us who you are, how you got into gaming, and what do you know about DCC MCC?
Okay. All right. Well, I'm Judge Forrest. Forrest Aguirre. That's spelled Aguirre, just like it sounds. My gaming history goes back to 1979. A friend of my dad's by the name of Bill Walters. If anybody knows him, put me in contact, please. Introduced me originally to D&D. Just briefly, I was living in Italy at the time. My dad was in the Air Force, and we moved to Nebraska in a couple of years, and Bill got stationed in Nebraska as well again. Again, we were together, I guess, and so he invited me into his group, and that's how I started. Was AD&D 1E, I suppose, at that point. I became polygamorous pretty quickly. One of my favorites was Gamma World First Edition, which I have a tender place in my heart for, a radiation pit, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
And I played a lot of Gamma World. Played a lot of D&D too, and other games as well. Even far outside of TSR's realm of influence. Now, with DCC, my original introduction to DCC was I was shopping at my friendly local gaming store and I saw a bunch of these modules up on a rack and thought, oh, that's interesting. I haven't seen modules like that for a while. And so I picked one up. It was something about the Drow. I can't remember now. Anyway, and it was for D&D 3.5. So I looked at that and was suitably impressed, and I later learned about Dungeon Crawl Classics through that, and eventually I went to Gamehole Con a couple years back and started to play the game. And then with Mutant Crawl Classics, I also started this at the last Gamehole Con. Sat down with Jim Wampler as the judge, and we went through the Museum of at the End of Time, or at least a playtest version of it. It was a little bit different than what you see in the module.
Yeah.
There were some encounters there that I was surprised when I was thumbing through the RPG Day module. I was looking for certain encounters because I thought they were so cool, and they weren't there. Which, yeah. So I think Jim has plenty of other tricks up his sleeve. At least I know a couple of them.
Absolutely.
So what made me love it? What made me love DCC and MCC? I think, I took a bit of a hiatus from gaming for, probably 7 or 8 years. Came back to it through some friends. But when I first saw Dungeon Crawl Classics, started looking at the rules and understanding what was going on there, and I know that Jim has said this before. Jim Wampler said this in the Spellburn podcast, and I would agree with him. I felt like a kid again. I was looking at this and I thought, man, this is that rush that I felt when I was 10 years old. Initially getting into gaming, just the sheer excitement of it, and I don't know if it was the art, I don't know if it was the tweaks to the system that kind of came outside of the bounds of the old D&D, but there was something about it that just really caught my attention, and yeah.
Nostalgia is a powerful drug, isn't it?
It is, but it's kind of a forward-looking nostalgia because the game it's not basic D&D.
No.
It's definitely not. And there are some really cool mechanics in there that kind of push it over the top. And I liked that aspect of it. It reminded me really of when I was a teenager and we'd play and we would push things over the top anyway because we were teenagers.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And you start house ruling things. And anyway, I started looking at the rules and I was like, boy, this is kind of like the house rules we used to use. And this is just the crazy stuff that we used to do as kids. So anyway, that appealed to me a great deal. And then since then, I've got to say the community is awesome.
Oh yes, you can't say enough about.
Oh my goodness, it just some great people, fantastic people, very smart people, very crazy people. they're my people. And what about you, Bill?
Well, if there were a marketing scenario, I was marketing scenario 1. 1981, I saw on the back of a comic book about a new game called Dungeons and Dragons. There was a red box there. I went down to the Sears and Roebuck catalog store out in West Georgia. I placed the order. I returned 6 to 8 weeks later to pick up the item because that's how long it took to get goods to anyone at that time. Yep. Ripped open the cover, grabbed my best friend, and I was a dungeon master taking him to the keep on the Borderlands.
From day one.
From day one, I was a dungeon master. I didn't play. I picked it up. I made it up as I went. I picked up people here and there, sometimes by force. Even found myself one time, me and my friend and a couple of adult neighbors, and I was running a game for them, and I didn't even know them. Some weird situations there. But I went... and this kind of went all the way into AD&D. By that point, I was picking up other games like Star Frontiers, Marvel Superheroes, Boot Heel, Top Secret, Cyberpunk, and you can tell something was missing in that list.
Yeah.
something, Gamma World. I skipped it. I didn't find it then, and then at that point later in college, I was having games where I'd have like 8 players, and then there'd be 15 guys around watching, drinking beers. They didn't want to play; they just wanted to laugh, right? So it was really kind of a surreal thing. College, wife, kids. I put the game away for about 20 years.
Yep.
And about 5 years ago, I travel for a living, recording from a hotel room right now. And I was sitting in a hotel room one Wednesday night and decided I'm tired of staring at the same old hotel artwork. Went and found a group at a local gaming store playing Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition. And that's when that's kind of when the nostalgia kicked in.
Uh-huh.
And I got back into that. I came in late in 4th edition, picked up 5, and enjoyed it, having a good time. Really enjoying playing that. And then I started trying to figure out this third-party publisher who had these really cool modules. And I didn't understand what was going on. Turned out to be they were 5th edition fantasy or DCC. And these modules weren't for 3, 5, 4 or 5. I couldn't place where they were from. I finally figured out they were for Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game.
Right.
I went to Drive-Thru RPG. I went to buy the book, and I already owned it. I had picked it up as part of a package of stuff that I had done for a charity. And where I fell in love with it is I started reading it. It was fun, and it still is fun to read.
Yep.
The artwork was classic, right from the black and white stuff that I grew up, that made my images of that world. It was the same artwork. It was, yep. It was all new art, but it was what I built my visions off of back then. And I couldn't put it down. And that's kind of, why we kicked off. I want to, where I didn't get into the Gamma World or the Metamorphosis Alpha. I didn't really know about Metamorphosis Alpha, but somehow this has captured me, and I want to be in it now.
Great.
So for our listeners that are going, I don't know what kind of character I want. I don't know what kind of setting I want to be in. I don't know how to run a game in this. I'm in your camp, and I'm going to be looking at this stuff from this viewpoint.
Right. We're going to be building some options together too.
Absolutely. So, Forrester, I don't think we can get a podcast out on this weekly.
No.
This is to our listeners, this is a volunteer organization all the way from your co-host here to pre-production, post-production, and stuff like that. We're going to release one. We're going to try to shoot for one a month. One a month.
Yep.
Absolutely. For our main section today, which we're calling The Great Disaster, I think there's no better place to start than what is the post-apocalyptic genre.
Down in the shelter. What are we doing here? This is a section of the Glowburn podcast where we want to highlight what we've been doing in the MCC and DCC gaming and other related games. We've set a list of priorities here, whether it's running MCC, playing, writing stuff, reviewing stuff for MCC or DCC, shopping for MCC, DCC, and then which we do a lot of window shopping.
Absolutely.
And then we'll take it from there and ratchet it down to the next level, if you will, of post-apocalyptic role-playing. I don't want to say level. That implies some kind of a qualitative analysis. That's not what I mean. One step removed from MCC, Crawling Under a Broken Moon, Crawl Jammer, Metamorphosis Alpha, Gamma World, and then anything else we might be doing in other systems. Just because, we can't always be playing MCC as much as we'd like to. Unfortunately, I'm not 12 anymore, and my mom doesn't pay or dad doesn't pay all the bills, so.
No, and we get disturbed too many times when we head down into the basement or the
That's
shelter,
true.
as we call it.
Even in the shelter, we get unsheltered.
All right, so let's head down in the shelter and find out what's going on.
All right.
Down in the shelter.
All right, so what have I been doing in terms of MCC? Well, as some of you know, I'm sure at least one or two of you listening have played in my game. I am running and I'm putting that in big quotation marks.
You're running a game already.
I'm running a game, and what I've done is I'm using the quick start rules, and I'm combining that with the DCC rules because the MCC and DCC are supposed to map onto each other directly. So I'm using that as my backup, and kind of extrapolating how to use or how to run certain classes based on things I've heard Jim Wampler say, and using the structure of DCC. And also, as I said earlier, I'm a big Gamma World First Edition geek, and I have been using that quite liberally. And I've even dipped a little bit into the Carcosa rule set from Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Just a bit. Players may see more of that as time goes on. They're probably hoping not, but they might. So it's kind of a hybrid there for the time being. And actually, I'm really excited in the future to see when we finally do get the full rules. Where did we go wrong? Where do we go right? What do we want to keep as our house rules? What do we want to jettison? So that'll be really interesting to see.
Now, is this a campaign?
It is. It is a campaign. Okay. And it's started, I won't go into too many details, but it started as a 0-level funnel. And the basis there was an alien invasion followed by atomic bombs being dropped on the aliens and characters caught in the middle.
Classic.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Mars Attacks is one of my favorite movies of all time, so I had to nod to Mars Attacks. The characters, through a series of, I won't spoil it, things, end up in a city, or the remains of a city, the city that they were in when they began back in the 1950s. And they are, it's really kind of fun what you can do when you deprive characters of food and water, because they have incentive to move.
but then you got to make sure that not having food and water is a thing in the game, right?
Oh yeah,
that there's effects. Yeah.
Yes, there are, and yep, you got to find something quick. But of course, in the meantime, you're thrusting yourself into this ruined city. In my game, it's kind of a ruined version of Milwaukee. Some people might say it's already there.
You just go out and take pictures, right? And just bring them in as, wow, that's creepy, man.
Milwaukee's actually pretty nice now.
No, I've traveled to Milwaukee. That's actually where I started playing again.
That's Milwaukee. That's right. Yeah. So anyway, and one thing that this has allowed me to do is really play with the parameters of the system in terms of setting, because part of the setup is that aliens are using a time device just to toy with people, kind of a time shifting device. Well, when the U.S. military decides it's time to drop a nuke on Milwaukee or atomic bomb on Milwaukee, that does funny things to time.
Okay.
And so the crater, or I should say the blast radius of this bomb hitting this time machine, has left some concentric rings of weirdness, I guess, with time. So the center is pretty much a ruined 1950s Milwaukee, but you move out from there and you start encountering some stranger and stranger things as you go along.
Nice.
The one nice thing it's allowed me to do is I'm a big fan of Fallout 4. I think that's just a beautiful, beautiful game.
My teenage son plays that, and I sit down and watch him sometimes.
Right.
The art's amazing.
And that's what
he goes off about the story, too.
Yeah, well, for me, it's the aesthetic. So I've taken that as one of my concentric rings of this blast radius is a section that is just like Fallout. It's basically what people thought the future was going to be in the 1950s and 1960s.
Yeah.
So actually, the players are just on the edge of that right now, about to break out into what I will call the real Mutant Crawl Classics world, which is Terra AD, which is, who knows, tens of thousands of years in the future. Who knows? More of the Jack Vance type thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm running. In terms of playing, it's been a while since I played MCC. And unfortunately, I'm not going to get a chance to at this upcoming Game Hole Con. I wasn't able to get into into a slot there, but there will be pickup games of MCC and DCC that I'll be able to crash for sure. And I am running DCC.
Just need to go up like Oliver Twist, with your rule book out.
Yeah.
Sir, may I have some more?
It's, and the thing is, people are willing to dish out more at the cons. It's pretty great. It's pretty fun.
Awesome.
In terms of writing stuff, I've been taking my notes from the campaign and trying to compile those into something that's readable. That's a work in progress.
Yeah.
And a little bit later, I'll talk about something more specific that I'm writing when we get to one of our later sections in the show. Let's see what else. I'm playing in a D&D second edition game. A friend of mine from graduate school is running that online and having a great time with it.
That's one thing that when I got back into gaming and moving from 4th to 5th edition and looking out there, I was very surprised that people were playing, BX, first edition, second edition, the whole gamut.
Yep.
It just really, I thought people treat it like software. I got to be on the latest version. But there are people that love second. They didn't want to spend any time moving from it.
Yeah.
And they've been there ever since.
Yeah.
I was very surprised. No, that's cool.
Yeah, it's boy, if you want to play it, it's out there somewhere. Somebody's doing it.
Absolutely. Somebody's doing it.
So what about you, Bill?
Well, like I said, I've read through the DCC rule book. I knew I was doing this podcast, and I knew we were going to do the down in the shelter section. And I thought to myself, I got to have something to talk about.
Yeah.
And so I decided that the nights, the game nights that I'm not recording or doing something with this, that I would once again, I've always been the judge, that I would run and host a DCC. And I was going to start. We were going to start with DCC, and then we're going to move into the more strange mutant stuff. But I got together. I'm a Roll20 guy.
Uh-huh.
I enjoy that. Enjoy all aspects of setting up. And so I started a Roll20 a Wednesday night DCC gaming group. I got 4 players, and we've had a couple sessions now. The first one, we went through Frozen in Time. And the one thing I do is I don't tell them the name of the module. And right now they have no idea what module they're in. And one thing I wanted to do was, because I see that the DCC game is one half of the beauty. The other half is these modules that come out with it.
Yeah.
That they marry and match together in such a way. And that I wanted to take a group, even to the point where I'm like, I don't know if we're going to have much story in between these things. Whatever I can work out. But we're going to go in these modules. We're going to enjoy this game completely, because I am a homebrew campaign writer.
Right.
And so now, and that's what we're doing. We're going through, modules here and there, depending on what level they're in and how I can fit it in. And these 4 did a funnel, thoroughly enjoyed Frozen in Time.
Great.
They, made out with some good loot and ended up, who knows when. I'll just leave it at that. Who knows when? And so, and really, at the end of that module, if the characters exit one way, it's really up to me, right? Of what happens and where they go from that point. And they took that exit. And I have a great bunch of role players they're all rainmakers. They all jump in there and they do such a good job. I have a fighter who is having more fun than the wizards, because he has embraced the mighty deeds.
Yep.
And it's like he's the fighter, and he has all the abilities that any other fighter would have to earn as they go up in levels. That's the way he sees it.
Yep.
And it is just a joy to watch it. And they did good. Right now they're playing 2 characters apiece, but because I didn't kill off everybody at the funnel, I'm still working on that. We'll get there. I probably got a 5th person joining, and when we kind of get up to those numbers, we're going to go down to a single character apiece.
Right.
But it's been a hoot. So that's what I'm running. I also from time to time enjoy Rob Schwab's Shadow of the Demon Lord. I think the Speed system, run that when I'm in the more horror mood.
Yep.
And that's what's going on now. I'm not going to give away too much about what the guys are, because they're still in the middle of an adventure. But as the podcast gets ahead of them, then I can reveal more, and they can go, slap their forehead and go, oh, that's what was going on.
Keep them guessing.
Keep them guessing. All right. I think since we're down in the shelter here, I'm going to tune in the radio and see if we can catch some voices of the ancients.
All right.
Voices of the Ancient Ones.
The Voices of the Ancients is the section where we read listener fan mail. And we, being the first episode, you're going to be quite surprised, but we were actually able to get some people to write in and, kind of go over some things with us about the show, suggest some topics and other media, and, just share with us about how excited they are about this upcoming game. We have 4 messages that we've tuned into, and Forrest, why don't you take the first one?
Sure, and let me note here that early adapters usually get positive mutations.
So they're going to get that useful third arm.
We're hoping so.
Absolutely.
So our first message is from Chris Ellis, and Chris has a number of questions. And he says, first of all, when is Judge Jim coming to Glowburn? Let me just read the email. When is Judge Jim coming to Glowburn? Have either of you had a chance to get some table time with MCC, whether it be a playtest or otherwise? I would love to hear some firsthand experience with either playtest or anyone who has run their own session using the museum at the end of time. I have read through the preview rules, and it is such a tease, a good tease, but still a tease. I'm looking forward to playing and getting more information on the missing classes and genotypes. My new fondness of DCC and MCC has pushed me to register for my first GaryCon this coming March, and I am really hoping there will be some MCC sessions to join, maybe even one with Judge Jim. Thanks again for putting on Glowburn. I'm hoping together we can burn some luck and use Glowburn to convince the Dark Master to shorten the schedule and get some ancient artifacts prior to August 2017.
We're all burning luck.
A huge congrats to Jim Wampler for the outstanding Kickstarter success, helping to make Jim's dream come true. All right, Chris, so there's a number of things here. First of all, I have just gotten off the metaphorical phone with Judge Jim very recently, like in the last couple of hours. And he wants to support the podcast any way he can. I'm going to talk to him at GameholeCon coming up in November, and I'll discuss with him probably more of a firm timeline. We want to give him the opportunity to talk around the time that the actual MCC book is released. So I want to talk to him about timing on that. However, I cannot reveal any secrets I may or may not learn there. And you ask about getting some table time with MCC. Yes. I mentioned this earlier. What about, Bill, you have not had a whole lot yet.
No, so. I have not. I'm sitting here just in complete envy of you. Go ahead.
I have to tell you, Jim he's a great judge, and I really like his style, the way that he's definitely old school. If you're dumb, you're gonna die. That's all there is to it. But if you're smart, the rewards are very great. And I don't want to spoil anything about Museum at the End of Time or the even some of the what do I want to call it, encounters that we had that aren't in the module. Suffice it to say, it's a ton of fun. It is just a ton of fun. It is a good tease, and you should feel very teased right now.
Absolutely.
I am teasing you.
Yes.
And GaryCon is fantastic, Chris. Seriously, I don't even know how to express how cool GaryCon is.
It's the gamers convention, isn't it? It is tabletop role-playing gamers war game convention, isn't it?
I would say, there are 4 main conventions that people tend to go to. Of course, there's Gen Con, which I have not been. I don't have much of a desire to go hang out with 60,000 people, but who knows? I might sometime. Then there's GaryCon, of course, in March down in Lake Geneva. For me, that's easy because it's an hour and a half drive away. There is North Texas role-playing game, which is definitely of an old school bent, and there are a lot of DCC events happening there and MCC as well.
Okay.
And then there in November is GameholeCon, which is literally about a half-hour walk from my house here in Madison, Wisconsin.
Wow.
And there are a few DCC sessions. I know that Jim will be running MCC, Doug Kovacs will be running DCC, Brendan LaSalle's running DCC, I am running DCC. I know that Jim Ward is running Metamorphosis Alpha. which really bums me out that I wasn't able to get into that because I would have loved to have done that. Oh
that would
yeah.
have been cool.
Well, try it next time for GaryCon and see what happens. Oh, and let's see. I think Julian Bernick is running AD&D. I can't remember if he's running DCC at this con or not. I don't recall. But in any case, there's a lot of DCCing and MCCing to be had at these conventions. And GaryCon, the coolest thing about GaryCon, though, Chris and Bill, is the after hours. You can have a lot of fun sitting down. I sat down at Joe Bittman's table in the formal time, had a great time. Sat down with Jim Wampler. Yeah, it's fun. But after hours, all the craziness happens in terms of gaming. You get a lot of really spontaneous judges just spontaneously creating stuff as we go. And it's a lot of fun. It's just a hoot. Of course, by that time you're so deprived of sleep, anything's fun.
Sleep, food, everything.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's great. Looking forward to meeting you at GaryCon, Chris. And I'll be the guy with the fez, or one of them anyway. Look for the fez with the eyeball on the front. That'll be me.
One of them. All right, I'll pick up the next email. Randy Andrews writes in, Reed Sanfilippo recently put out 2 issues of Crawling Under a Broken Moon that included a hex crawl in a Jurassic Park-like park. It left out some of the hexes up to the imagination if the judge and filled out some others. I know a lot of judges want to run and don't have a lot of time to flesh out those hexes. So I decided to randomly roll them up per the instructions in issue 14. The result was posted on my blog, totalgmkills.com, which is kind of ironic because me being his GM totally killed his character in the last session. Sorry about that, Randy. Not really.
Karma.
Absolutely. So definitely check out www.totalgmkills.com, and he may have saved you a lot of time if you're interested in running some Jurassic Park Crawling Under a Broken Moon. He continues on a little bit. Additionally, we actually played our first game and had a blast. It was so much fun. My players managed to get themselves off the purple planet by rescuing the navigator, Tia Lizix, who is now played by George. Go for it, George. Enjoy it. And is playing him quite well as his internal monologue being external. The players made their way to a planet where George was supposed to have met a friend all those decades ago. His friend's town was gone, and in place was the giant dome. That is an adventure hook if I have ever heard one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, players, for writing in, sharing what you're doing. That is very science fantasy, post-apocalyptic, Mutant Crawl Classics kind of stuff. It just fuels us, and we can disseminate it out, and it can fuel everybody else. We like to see what you're doing and how you're doing it. Thanks, Randy. Appreciate it.
All right. Our next email comes from Michael Kachi. Michael says, have you ever heard of the Little City in Space show out of KFAI in Minneapolis? Think Fire Sign Theater, but sci-fi. I think a number of random things could be mined out of that show by an enterprising judge. Also, how about a movie review segment? Specifically, I'd like to see things about movies that are streaming right now. And to that end, let me suggest Turbo Kid on Netflix. All right, Michael. I have not heard the Little City in Space. It sounds actually really cool, and we'll definitely be giving that a listen. And as far as mining things out of that show, we're going to be talking later in the show about mining stuff to quite a degree, actually. And that's actually going to be a fairly regular feature of the show. Not necessarily mining out of movies per se, although I do have a couple in mind that I will be mining from later on. And movie review segment, we'll take it as you can.
Yeah, we'll put it in. It kind of requires both of us to pick up the movie or the book or the comic or whatever, kind of at the same time. It's not. I don't think it's out of the picture.
No.
But right now we actually got some really cool things to cover coming up. But no, I think if we get to a point where you and I want to catch something and watch it, and then we can talk about it. On the one thing we probably aren't going to cover here is and it's something that Spellburn's never covered too much either for a practical reason, is we're not going to spoil any modules, right? That's no fun for anybody, and so but definitely if we find something that we've both recently watched, it could end up in the show. We don't know, so we're not ruling it out.
Now on the Turbo Kid, I've seen the preview. It looks fantastic. But I will admit that I am one of those people that just very recently got Netflix. I don't have cable. I don't watch a lot of TV. And so I just picked up Netflix a little while ago, so maybe I have to check out Turbo Kid. I will also say that you know that one show that's been getting a lot of play lately, that
Yeah.
Stranger Things.
Yes.
I love that show.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'll tell you, part of the reason I love it is because I was the exact same age as those kids in 1981,
Yeah.
practically sitting at that table.
Yeah.
So I
And,
remember that.
and your house had that one phone in the center of the house, like in the kitchen with the long
Yep.
stretchy cord. Yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
if I wanted to talk to my girlfriend, I had to go and sit on the basement stairs and close the basement door and hope the cord didn't get cut.
Absolutely. Or
Yep.
no one clotheslined themselves.
Right. So anyway, so I'm new to Netflix. I'll take a look, and like I said, I love the preview for Turbo Kid. It looks pretty amazing, pretty gonzo.
All right. I'll pick up the last one here.
Okay.
This one's from Jonathan N. I've started up a campaign with my wife and teenage daughter that is a mixture of Drongo and Peril on Purple Planet. I've run them through the funnel escape from the Purple Planet, and I'm not sure what to do for low-level adventures that have a John Carter vibe. I'm thinking about reskinning the Star Frontiers adventure SFO, Crash on Volturnus, and the old D&D module B4, The Lost City. Do you have any other suggestions for swords and planet adventures for levels 1 through 3? For show ideas, I'd love to see a show on the different takes on psionics out there. Reed Sanfilippo just released UXO2, Mind Games, and Crawljammer and Drongo both have their takes on psionics too. So, rock on for getting the family involved. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I have not. Do you know anything about Drongo?
I don't.
No. Are you? Do you have the Purple Planet stuff?
I know the Purple Planet. Yes, I've adventured on the Purple Planet at least once.
Okay. Yeah. Now, where I have missed out on those two, I was definitely a Star Frontiers guy.
Mm-hmm.
And just even the link he sent to link to all those things was just fabulous, and I dug into that. I did pull up Before the Lost City.
Mm-hmm.
I read it, and I like the idea, and I think Jonathan, you're on the right track here. Take the stuff you love, the stuff, and reskin it or rework it for where you want to take them. Because if you love that, then they're going to love that because your excitement is going to go in there. Be careful with the Lost City. They're going to leave there completely wealthier than the wealthiest king. Literally, I read through this module and like all the treasures are in multiples of thousands.
Yep,
Like, there's no gem under 250 gold piece worth. It's fabulous. But my suggestion would be to go get more of that stuff. I think X1 Isle of Dread, it is really a self-contained hex crawl, which I think fits good with this kind of motif. I think hex crawls are where we want to go, and its main goal is to, there's this mysterious thing out there, go explore it, and you don't know where it's coming from, and I think you might want to look at some stuff like that as well. That's a good one.
There are also some things outside of the TSR realm that can at least serve as some inspiration. Of course, reskinning, it would be more of a re-surgically attaching the head.
Absolutely.
But you can do that. Some that come to mind are Castle Falkenstein. And
Castle what?
Falkenstein?
Okay.
You have to go back to the 90s for that one.
All right.
Space 1889.
Oh yeah, I love that show.
Yep, and that
was a show. That was a show, wasn't it?
You're thinking of 1999. This is the actual role-playing game.
10 years later.
100
years later.
110 years earlier. Later, yes. So this is the game, Space 1889, and I hate to mention it even again because your players are going to hate me, but Carcosa definitely has a Purple Planet, Purple Planet vibe to it. I'm trying to think what else. Some of the modules that Venture Satanis has done, those are also going to be good. You can look up him on if you go to RPG Now, he will have some things there.
Okay.
Islands of Purple Haunted Putrescence, I think it's called. That might be good. I've gamed there myself, and it has a kind of a cross between Lovecraft and Purple Planet John Carter vibe. It's a little bit more scary than John Carter ever encountered, but Same sort of thing. Same sort of idea.
Okay. What do you think about psionics?
I think that Dungeons and Dragons did a horrible job with it.
Psionics is always this thing where it seems to be tacked on.
Yeah.
At the end, where it kind of would have been better if it's baked in up front.
Well, and I'll my of course my favorite psionics are really the mental mutations from Gamma World First Edition.
Okay.
They're they're mutations. There's not a point system. You either have it or you don't.
Right.
And it mirrors some spell effects like D&D did. Kind of like MCC wetware will mimic the DCC spells. But it's not overly complex, but it is extremely powerful, and can be extremely debilitating if you get a defect.
Right.
So I like that. I still need to read Reed's UX02. I've been crawling through the Crawling Under a Broken Moon lately, and so I haven't gotten to UX02 just yet, but it is on my list.
So I actually did put it in our sort of bucket of ideas, and when it comes up, maybe we'll revisit it. We'll look at compare, contrast. We'll do something with psionics. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, and so we don't know when, but it's in our list of things to look at. So that's our 4 emails or 4 voices of the ancients. You'll find our contact information at the end of the show in the show notes wherever you can find them when we post them. But please submit us show ideas, segment ideas, ask questions about the game. Feel free to use, what weird post-apocalyptic science fantasy world you're tromping through right now. We always love those stories. If you come across some sort of old esoteric mutant book, movie, or comic out there, mention that to us. If you're so inclined, buy 3 copies. Keep one for yourself. Send the other 2 to us. We'd appreciate that as well.
We take all kinds of ephemera.
Absolutely, absolutely. But we got bigger problems right now for us. You know why?
Why is that?
What's coming up?
What's coming up? I think I do.
It's the Great Disaster.
Here it is.
The Great Disaster.
Go, 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 go!
So, Forrest, we're here in the post-apocalyptic world. What does that look like? I got a feeling that this is not something that our ancestors, sat around and talked about. I think, where did this come from? So what's funny is that this post-apocalyptic genre, and this is one of my theories, is that it is like a chemical compound, in that if you add something in, it's going to change it very, very much. So, for example, you get something like, very recent after the apocalypse. You're looking at something like a movie like The Postman, right?
Right.
Where everybody remembers it, and they all remember what jobs they had and what they did, and now they're surviving, but there's no communication. All right, they have some food, but there's no communication, so they're kind of broken into a feudal system. Government's broken down. Or then you get kind of up to something where no one remembers, like just placing your setting some distance from the apocalypse changes it significantly. You get into sort of, we don't know what happened, but we don't have any water, or something's radioactive. And then that gets all the way up to some more of the what's kind of what we're talking about in Mutant Crawl Classics is something happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
And civilizations have come and gone since then, but the world is completely unknown, and you don't know what you're going to find, because not only has, something blown up, but aliens have visited, and they've left different technology, and the tanks have rusted away long ago.
Right.
Just changing when you place your setting will change your game drastically.
Right. And I think of, Jim's notion is that everybody in Mutant Crawl Classics in Terra AD is in a Paleolithic level, at least.
Right.
You contrast that with, for example, the first Mad Max movie. Mad Max was a cop. They had police. They were patrolling. They were patrolling. But then you move to the Road Warrior, and suddenly things are very, very different.
Right.
anyway, people often forget that about the first Mad Max movie. There were still people going on vacation in campers. You know, they were
Oh,
still
wow.
touristing. People forget that. But yeah, you look at the Terra AD setting, and it's so far removed. It's an utter alien landscape. I'll say when in the session that I was sitting in with Jim Wampler, I recall clearly when we would encounter something of the ancients, like a building or something, and trying to describe what the building was made of. You know, his answer was, "You don't know." We didn't.
Right.
You don't
Right.
have a clue what it's made of. You know, what is glass? What is even, you know, high grade steel to somebody who's from the Paleolithic, essentially. You
Right.
just don't know.
So here's a good question. DCC modules can get pretty far out there,
Mhm.
and we might not be able to answer this question, but they're still anchored by being a fantasy setting. Now,
Usually.
yeah, usually. You might have gone to another planet. You might be dealing with an AI, but it is all set, and maybe you'll get back to it or in the frame of. What does this mean for MCC? Are there limits?
Again, you know, MCC and DCC kind of map onto each other. So
Yeah.
I would be interested, and I've never seen anybody do this with the old school games. You know, in the old AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide, there were conversions for Gamma World to AD&D.
Yep.
And you always heard about people going from the fantasy setting into the post-apocalyptic setting. In fact, the Expedition to the Barrier Peaks module is essentially that.
Okay.
It's an alien spacecraft, but it's really post-apocalyptic. But I don't recall any instances where people from the time of Gamma World went back in time or space or whatever into a fantasy setting.
Yeah.
I just don't recall that. I'd be interested to see somebody do that, but that's I think where the limits would become more stark, I guess.
Right.
You'd be able
Right.
to see them more clearly.
Right.
So don't know if I'm answering the question really.
Yeah, no, it's. I don't know if there is. I don't know if there is a. I think it's what, you know, the good judge has to, you know, have a take on what his players think,
Yes.
that what his players need to identify with, that they feel like they're in a post-apocalyptic setting. In one of the future shows that I think we had talked about is the setting, and I think that does matter. Matters so much that it may even deserve its own show.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so I think that because we could go all day on describing things or what it looks like or how far in the future or past are you and all this kind of stuff. Now, Forrest, I've developed a test for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I call it "Is it post-apocalyptic?" It's 15 questions, and I'm going to get, and if there's no right answer, a lot of wrong ones,
I'll have all the wrong answers.
So here's what I want you to look at it. If you are a player in this world and you run across what I've just described, would it make you feel like you are in a post-apocalyptic genre? Are you ready for this test?
All right,
Okay.
yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay. All right. Number 1, a puppy.
How many eyes does it have?
Just 2.
Are they glowing?
No.
No lasers shooting out of them?
No.
Probably not post-apocalyptic.
No. Okay. Number 2, either a recent or distant apocalypse. I'm throwing you the easy ones right now.
I would think that would be post-apocalyptic, yes.
There you go. That was a gimme. Yeah. 3, a sawed-off shotgun.
It depends on where I started.
Okay. 4, a marshmallow.
Ooh, well, I'm convinced that marshmallows last for eternity. So
they're not soft anymore though. You know that ends pretty quick.
That's true. Now, if you would have said maraschino cherry, I would have said definitely post-apocalyptic because those things never go bad.
Right. All right. I'm gonna go on to number 5 here. A marshmallow man.
Oh boy. Well, if it isn't post-apocalyptic, it's going to be soon.
Okay. All right. Number 6. A carnivorous animated pile of garbage with marshmallow eyes set on total world destruction.
Um, well, yeah, and the main reason is because it's the total world destruction. If there's not much of a world left, it could probably destroy
Yeah, that's what you needed to throw this over the over into the yes. Okay. All right, number 7, a college dissertation.
I mean, like the actual physical college dissertation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, oh man, well now you've got me going back to the time enough at last episode of Twilight Zone. So I'll say yes.
Okay, all right. A lack of a fundamental resource.
Again, it depends on the scope. Really depends on the scope. If it's local, I mean, my parents live in California. They don't have any water, but they're doing okay.
Yeah, right now here in Atlanta, we don't have any gas. So,
Oh, great.
yeah.
That could be
All
an
right, number-
apocalypse.
If there's a little tinge, yes. Number 9, a teddy bear.
Teddy bears scare me. That's more horror than post-apocalypse.
Then you're gonna love these next two. Number 10, a teddy bear filled with bugs.
Oh man. Okay, yeah. Yeah, well, because cockroaches are the great survivors, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
and scorpions. Have
Yeah.
you ever seen those studies on scorpions?
No, what?
Oh boy, a quick example. Somebody somewhere, and I can't remember who it was, took a scorpion, froze it solid, like instantly with liquid nitrogen or something, and then let it thaw out over time, and it survived.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
All
scary.
right. A teddy bear filled with sentient bugs with a hive mind intelligence that are good at sewing and ranged weapons.
Definitely post-apocalyptic, yes.
All right, you passed that one. All right. 12, sparsely populated regions.
Yeah, that's a tough call. I mean, relatively speaking, Detroit is a sparsely populated region, but some might argue that it is post-apocalyptic there. I don't know.
Already, yes, touche.
All right.
All right. Number 13, a lobster.
How big?
Number 14, a large lobster.
The reason I ask is if you've looked at the Crawling Under a Broken Moon supplements, there is a Lobsterzilla, I think it's called.
Okay.
So something to that effect. And actually, I encountered one of those while I was playing in Julian Burnick was running Crawling Under a Broken Moon at GaryCon last year, and we ran into a gigantic mutant lobster. So it could be post-apocalyptic.
Well, that may have been where I got subconsciously question 15, an amphibious glowing blue lobster that you can use as a mount in aquatic or shore settings.
That is just pure metal.
I like
pure
it. All right,
metal.
you passed. I will
thanks.
post your scores to the Google Plus community.
Oh, the shame of it all.
The shame of it all.
Thanks. That's kind of fun.
Now, Forrest, I think this is the most important genre that we need to be looking at and playing it right now, because I think it sends our minds in a very important direction. Now, here's where I'm going with this: that when we play role-playing games, whether we're playing DCC, we're doing some fantasy, or we've jumped on the Purple Planet, or we're shooting around in sort of a Star Frontier space thing, that we're getting something from this genre, that there is a payout. And it's something I thought about I did a little research on it, and there is some truth to this. That so if you take 3, let's take horror, fantasy, and science fiction. Why do we like scary films?
Well, we can talk for a moment about Edwin Burke. He was a philosopher who talked quite a bit about the sublime.
Yeah.
And the sublime was, in effect, it's that absolutely horrible thing that happens that you see. It doesn't affect you directly,
Right.
but it's so huge that you can't help but feel terrified, even if you know that thing can't touch you. Good example would be witnessing a volcanic explosion.
Right.
It's huge. It's gigantic. You cannot avoid seeing it. And the thought of, if I were any closer to this thing, I'd be in real trouble. can really take hold of you. But being that you're safe from it, your mind kind of plays a trick on you and pushes you into what we call this, or what Bert calls the sublime.
Right.
It pushes you to a place where you are safe. You kind of know you're safe, but you might feel like you're right on the edge there. It's kind of the adrenaline rush.
Right. So there's this build up,
Mhm.
there's this rush, but you can still feel okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly what I'm thinking. That we do watch this to be scared, but we also watch it, and the payoff is I was scared and now I feel okay.
Well, and it's funny, in terms of a game mechanic, it's, try rolling your 30-sided die for the first time when you're doing a spell check. That moment
Absolutely.
that moment of anticipation when you're waiting for that final number to roll, it can be pretty intense.
Oh, when my group of players, someone said I'm going to cast, and all of us got silent. It was this big moment,
Right.
and we all stopped, and no one was talking while he typed in his roll command because we were just kind of holding our breath. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
No, and I think that's what we get from some scary films.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from fantasy, I just knowing players, and I'm not 100% a judge. I have played before, and with fantasy, I think it's just very empowering. I can lay on hands on my friend and heal them. I don't have to go to the doctor, fill out forms, and we get some medicine and go by the pharmacy and pick it up. I can just do it.
Right.
If I have an enemy out there that I don't like, I can call down a meteor shower upon his head.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is stuff. This is very emotional.
What's the whole conceit of the never-ending story? If you remember that movie, that a child can enter another realm and have power that he doesn't otherwise have.
Right. Defeat dragons, save the town, save the damsel. Right. And then that's a very hopeful, releasing feeling.
Right.
Now, when we get to science fiction, that one's an interesting little spin, and I think that it is the what good can we, even though there are villains in this, where can this take us? This being the rocket ship, or the technology, or the in case of Jules Verne, the submarine. Where can we go and explore?
How can we make things better?
Right. Even though we are stuck behind our desk 8 to 5, or we're working on the telephone pole, or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can get these things from these genres. I think that comes down to the question about what are we supposed to get from Mutant Crawl Classics? What are we supposed to get from post-apocalyptic gaming, from the emotional payout? What is the emotional payout of this game? And it's weird.
It is. I think it's kind of a combination of all three of those.
I think we're supposed to get the weird.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go. What'd you just say? That's cool.
Well, it's just a combination of all three of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the horror element. There's this whole collapse of civilization.
Yeah.
You've got the. It's not fantasy per se, but it's a fantastical.
Absolutely.
Usually in the setting, and then of course the science fiction kind of goes without saying that you're talking about technology far ahead of what we have, or maybe not so far ahead of what we have now.
Or who knows until you start rolling to see if you can use it or not.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So it also being a combination of all three of these, I think the important thing is I like the idea of the younger and older of anyone sitting down and actually worrying about what is ahead of us. War, fall of man, disease, comet strike, polar ice caps, solar storm, economic collapse, and so on and so on. If this is on people's minds, then they're planting, they're thinking about it, and maybe there is things that we can do to avoid it. That's why I think this genre is the most important genre that we need to work on.
Well, and I also think that it speaks to, group survival, relying on one another. In the campaign that I'm running right now, we have a bunch of teenagers from the 1950s thrust into this future collapsed world, if you will. and they have to learn to help each other.
Yeah.
They have to, or they're not going to survive.
And isn't that for role-playing games, tabletop games, kind of the crux of it? The warrior can't do it alone. The cleric can't do it alone. The wizard can't do it alone.
Right.
They got to work together.
Right.
And I want people working together to maybe someone who plays this in the future can figure out, can see the economic collapse or the weapons of war coming because of something like this. They can, we can work with it better.
Avoid repeating the history.
Absolutely.
Yep.
No, I love this genre. I really do.
Yep. Me too.
All right. So I think that's going to close out our great disaster. But what's coming up next?
Next, we are going to go to the mutagenesis.
Mutagenesis.
Welcome to the mutagenesis. This is the section of the podcast where Bill and I are going to be pulling from various influences, various pieces of media, possibly other game systems, and try to convert them for MCC role-playing game use. We might not give you all the specific details, but we hope to send you in the right direction, get you started anyway. That's half the fun of it, is creating this, taking our ideas and running with them, mutating them even further, and seeing what you come up with. So, Bill, what did you have for our mutagenesis first episode?
Sure. I need to admit something here. When the MCC Appendix M came out and I saw the Jack Vance Dying Earth in there, I kind of felt a little stupid. I'm a big Jack Vance fan. Probably over the last 3 years, I've been sort of reading the books kind of continuously for the Dying Earth and some of his short stories. And it never occurred to me that the Dying Earth stuff was, I mean, I kind of read it was 23 eons into whatever that means, right, in the future. But in my brain, the whole time, I was reading a fantasy novel.
Right.
And I got to this point, in the minute you mentioned the mutagenesis section, I got it popped in my head. I got to this point when I'm reading this fantasy story, and Cudgel the Clever picks up a tube of blue concentrate, and I thought, wait, that's not a weapon. That's not a magic spell. What is that, right? And it kind of unsettled me because it didn't, as we talked about in the Great Disaster, it was out of trope, right?
Right.
The way he described it. So to cover what the book is, here's a couple little sections from it. After a dispute, Cudgel relinquished the salve and returned for a tube which projected blue concentrate to a distance of 50 paces. And when he went to use it, here's what happened. He expelled the blue concentrate at the villagers. Aghast, they toppled to the ground, and Cudgel was able to extricate himself from the net. So he didn't say he cast a spell.
Right.
Right. So that kind of was unsettling until I saw that the Vance stuff was input in MCC, and I was like, oh, that was an artifact.
Right. Right, because it reads like fantasy. It reads like maybe it's a wand or something.
Yeah, almost.
Right.
It fell out of my trope.
Right.
And so it was a little disconnected. So the minute that you've mentioned mutagenesis, I thought I'm doing that one, because that definitely was some technology, alien technology. That was not a spell or wand or anything. That was this and I don't know what Vance was doing. Maybe he just said tube of blue concentrate. I don't know. Maybe he was right. I don't know how much thought he put into this, or he kept going and stuff. But this was something that I thought, I see it now. And literally, I've gone back and reread all this stuff, looking for this sort of things. And so I picked Cudgel's tube of blue concentrate. So here's what I came up with.
All right.
Tech level 1, complexity level 1. It's a tube with a button. Okay. We don't have the full rules yet, but I think I'm on mark with this. For range, I actually went to Google and asked it to convert paces to feet. So I got a number around 120 feet. Damage none, special. All targets must make a DC 12 fortitude save or be unconscious for 1d8 minutes. Power none, 1 usage per tube. So I picture some characters finding maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of these things. And what that does is a solution of blue concentrate can spray out to about a 45-degree arc, reaching up to 120 feet away. All targets must make a fort save or be unconscious. Now, I wanted this, and I always like this stuff like, what can go wrong?
Right.
So firing this weapon, the user must make a DC 5 luck check to fire this weapon. Failure indicates this tube might have a fault, and I came up with a what can go wrong table.
Oh, nice.
I wouldn't be doing this game justice if I didn't have a table.
Right.
So I came up with 6 what can go wrongs. Here they are, and I'll close it out with that. 1, active ingredient has degraded, just turns them blue. That's all it does. 2, the expellant has expired. The stuff just drips out of the tube like honey. 3, the trigger jams. Doesn't go off right now, but once the trigger's pressed, it will go off in 1D 100 minutes.
Oh boy, that could be fun.
Absolutely. Active ingredient has mutated. Basically, it just kind of gives them extra turn and makes them 1 die larger. It's basically speed. That's
okay.
What, 5, explosion. So this is everybody 360 degrees around in 10 feet. And then finally 6, a backfire. Basically, the caster or the user gets the full front of it. And yeah, it just comes out the wrong end.
That's when it's most fun, right?
Absolutely. But you know what? Maybe that won't happen. That luck check's DC's pretty low.
Yeah.
I think they're okay to fire off all of these.
That sounds like a blast.
Yeah. All right, that's what I came up with. That's how I interpreted this section. What do you got? What do you got, Forrest? What do you got for us?
All right. So for my mutagenesis, I have chosen to create a patron AI.
Wow.
I've done this before for DCC, creating patrons, and actually Jim Wampler was the person who suggested it to me first quite a while ago, saying if you really want to know how to write the system, go and create a patron.
Okay.
And it's good advice. Painful
That's
advice.
That's a lot of words.
It is. It's a lot like real work. But so let me start off with the influences that kind of got this thing lodged firmly in my brain. The first was simply a picture, an illustration, and it comes from the comic BPRD, and the artist Guy Davis. And in issue number 3 of Plague of Frogs, there is a picture of a being that's worshipped by these frog demon men. And for lack of a better term, it looks like a gigantic mold with kind of an anthropomorphic mold with several eyes and just really hideous of aspect. That's what started things. Then there is a comic that I picked up, and I had to order it from England because it isn't distributed here. It's an indie comic called Geopolitical Manipulation Through the Use of Fungi-Based Parasites on 186F. And
you went and tracked this down.
I had seen the cover.
With this title.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I had seen the cover. Somebody had posted something on Google+. I saw the cover and I thought, wow, that looks like something right up my alley. And so I went and found the publisher, which is Decadence Comics, and went ahead and ordered the comic. And it's a pretty simple, fairly short. I think it's just a dozen pages or so on newsprint. But the art is exquisite. It's amazing detailed line art. And there are no words. It is truly just graphic. But a story takes place dealing mostly with mushrooms and mutation, really, is what it's about. So then while I was poking around on the Decadence Comics website, I saw a video there that they had done. And the video was for a band called Soul and the Skyrider Band and their song Immortality. And if you go to YouTube, you can find that video there. And Bill, I know you've watched it.
Well, you need to start putting warnings on links that you give me in the show notes. It's something else, and I'm going to make sure that link gets out there. But it's intense. Yeah, no, I need warnings in the future for us.
It is safe for work. There's nothing untoward about it, but it is grim. more than just a little bit grim.
Yeah, it's like mutant plant kind of grim. That no, I'll definitely include the show notes.
Yeah, if you ever want to see Plantient's gone wrong, this is the video to watch.
Just I need a little heads up next time. That's all I'm asking.
All right. And then finally, the last influence on this was a book that I read a couple years ago called Biopunk: DIY Scientists Hack the Software of Life by Marcus Folson. And the Biopunk book basically talks about people doing genetic experiments in their kitchen. And some who does this, what do they do, how do they do it? Really fascinating stuff, I thought. So those four things, the BPRD Plague of Frogs picture, the video, the comic, and then the Biopunk book kind of blossomed together in my brain, I guess. And
Awesome.
From there, I created this patron AI called the Mold Mother. Now,
I like it.
I'll read a little bit of the intro for the Mold Mother, just to get you started. Of course, we don't have nearly enough time to go through all the details, but I will be typing her up, and I write by hand first, then I type. So I will be typing her up and putting those up for public consumption before too long. Maybe possibly by the time this airs, I hope. So let me start here. It says that it may remain forever unknown whether the ancient one who became Mold Mother suffered the grand transformation at the hand of mad scientists or voluntarily biohacked her way to immortality. Perhaps she was the victim of some accident of self-experimentation. In any case, those shadowed years matter not. What is of importance, however, is the incontrovertible fact of Mold Mother's survival of the Great Disaster. While most technology ceased to operate and much of life with it, Mold Mother persevered. And still she lives. So essentially we've got a pre-Great Disaster scientist doing experiments with biology and biohacking with technology kind of coming together. So I see her as kind of some sort of a biocomputer, if you will, biological computer. But she is a patron AI.
She would be an entity that exists in this world.
Yes. With
far-reaching tendrils of sorts.
Mycelium, to be exact, actually.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of fungus and mold and such themed throughout. The patron taints are absolutely hideous.
If they're anything like, if you got those from the video, absolutely.
Yeah.
Not one I'm picking.
Let's see. Let me read. I'll read the first one. The first patron taint. This is actually one of the milder ones. This is, you roll your 1d6 if you get a 1. Any food touched by the shaman immediately spoils, covered with gray fuzzy mold. He may eat it, but anyone eating it who is not a follower of the Mold Mother must make a DC 20 fortitude save or grow violently sick for 1 hour, unable to do anything but vomit and groan in pain. The second time this taint is rolled, all food that comes within 10 feet of the shaman is thus affected. Keep in mind, these things are permanent too. The third time this taint is rolled, all food that comes within 50 feet of the shaman is thus affected. So that's the first one. They get worse from there.
So they love it when he comes to town.
Oh boy,
possibly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's, basically if you get enough patron taints, you're going to be indistinguishable from a pile of mold.
Oh, I'm sure.
By the end of it all.
Right.
And I've got 3 patron spells, levels 1 through 3.
What are they called?
The first one is called Agar Affinity, and it's kind of a communication through the use of spores.
Okay.
And communicating with mold colonies around you, so you can tap into them for information.
Yeah.
The second one is called Spore Cloud, which you can think about for a second and just think the worst, and you probably are going to get it right. And then the third one is called a Quantum Meld, and that really allows kind of the interface between technology and the spores, mold, fungi, and so on. It will give bonuses to the shaman for trying to figure out artifacts, and especially if there are systems of artifacts.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to tap into a security system, this is the spell you want to use.
Oh, okay.
To try to tap in and understand it and get everything you can out of it, manipulate it as you will. So some
Excellent.
great benefits, but usually at great cost.
Such is the way of a patron.
Yeah, it is. It is. You you get what you pay for,
All right.
and you will pay.
So we've mutated a couple of great things here. I too am collecting mine in a book, and or at least a Google document, and we can make these available. Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. We're ready to survive this and close us out.
I think so. Well, thanks for listening to this first episode of the Glowburn podcast. In closing, we have a couple of announcements. First of all, these have been mentioned before. Gamehole Con will be coming up November 4th through 6th. That's in Madison, Wisconsin at the Alliant Energy Center. If you need to know where that is, come to my house and I'll show you. The Goodman Games crew will be there. Mutant Crawl Classics creator Jim Wampler will be running 2 sessions of Mutant Crawl Classics. Metamorphosis Alpha creator James Ward will be running a Metamorphosis Alpha session. And Reed Sanfilippo will be running 2 Crawling Under a Broken Moon events. There might be tickets available for some of those still, and rumor has it that Reed will possibly be running an off-the-books Crawling Under a Broken Moon. Also coming up next March is GaryCon. That'll be from March 23rd through 26th, 2017, down in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. The game schedule isn't available yet. I'm seriously contemplating running a first edition Gamma World session there.
Awesome.
Yeah, or if the MCC rules are out early enough, I might switch to MCC, but we'll see. I think I need to probably make up my mind, but I'm seriously thinking about running an episode that I would call Hoops and Hoppers.
Okay.
And those who know
Is this
Gamma World,
something you have pre-written or are writing?
This is it will be based loosely on a campaign that I took my kids through quite a while ago, quite a few years ago.
Okay.
Lots of bunnies, mutant bunnies.
I love it. So, if you want to contact us, here's how to do it. We have both Forrest and I can check we keep an eye on the Twitter and email account. We are at Glowburn on the Twitter feed. You can also email us at glowburnpodcast@gmail.com. If you really kind of want to be part of the show and join what we call our creative advisors, there's a Glowburn community out there in Google+. My name is Judge Bill. I can be tweeted at. Follow me at DNDBill. Also have a blog that I touch sometimes. It's all about gaming. It's http://nonlineardungeon.wordpress.com. Forrest, how can we reach you?
You can reach me on Twitter at Forrest Aguirre. That's FORRESTAGUIRRE. And you can take a look at my blog at forrestaguirre.blogspot.com.
We'd like to give some special thanks to some people who made this episode happen. Really, definitely the shaman of intros and outros and bumpers, Bob the Voice Brinkman, patron AI of audiovisual engineering, Hector the Missile Cruise. We'd like to thank our creative advisors over on the Google Plus community. We've been soliciting for about 9 weeks from you guys. What do you want? What do you want to see in the show? What can we get away with? We've had one person join every 3 hours all day today. So I think the last time our number was at 91 strong, and so I've edited that 3 times. But our intro and outro song is Juno by Chronox on their Voyager album. You can go check them out on the Free Music Archive. Just look for Chronox, CHRONOX, and check out that if you like it. Finally, let's take us out.
All right.
What do you got left? What do you got left for us?
We're going up top, so burn them if you got them.
All right. Now I got something to say to all you Goodman gamers out there. It's better to glow burn out than to fade away.
Ariel, Ookla, ride!
blood of your enemy makes you stronger.
This has been a Hectophonic production. The gun is good. The gun